Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Umar Khalid. But today, ladies and gentlemen, is the 6th of December 2023. The last month of the year is going past us very quickly, but so are the atrocities in Palestine. And this is what's going to be our first segment. Israeli tanks have pushed deeper into Khan Younas. Gaza is reaching humanity's darkest hour, says the World Health Organization. US apparently has imposed visa sanctions on the Israeli settlers. Will that happen? Well, time will tell. And also the GCC in its meeting expressed concern over the blatant Israeli aggression. Qatar has been quite vehement and openly talking about this as far as the GCC is concerned. Gaza is also on the agenda as the Russian President Vladimir Putin heads to the UAE and Saudi Arabia. This is going to be part of what we were discussing during the first segment today. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the climate change COP28. On the local front, our caretaker Prime Minister, Anwar Kakar urges religious leaders to tackle climate change and, of course, highlight that in their sermons as well. COP28 and the phasing out of fossil fuels, that seems to be now somehow going towards a kind of reality. Will that actually happen with the number of countries using fossil fuels? That only time will tell. Now, 63 countries have vowed to curb cooling emissions at COP28. Again, they have vowed, but whether this will translate into action is again another thing altogether. 2023, as far as the EU monitor goes, is going to be the hottest year on record. We have seen that this year. We've seen the rising temperatures not only in Pakistan but also across the globe. So the importance of COP28 becomes even more paramount. This is going to be our second story. Then we are going to talk about the Pakistan Stock Exchange, the PSX, the KSE 100 index that crossed the 64,000 mark for the first time. This is a huge for Pakistan Stock Exchange, because never in the past of Pakistan's economic outlook have we seen such figures coming as far as the PSX is concerned. The KSE 100 index gained 1.5% as well. It was up by 961 points by the end of the day, settled at 63,917 points. So a lot of upward trend means a lot of confidence as far as the investor market is concerned. Then we are going to talk about the 31st anniversary of the Babri Mosque demolition. Today is that very fateful day when Hindu fanatics pulled down the historic mosque in 1992. This also was one of the factors that gave rise to Islamophobia, something that India has continuously been adding towards since the Modi government came into power, as is evident from all the different measures that have been taken within the illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir or within India as well. Anyways, we'll be talking about Babri Mosque and what it means for the Muslims and Islamophobia. Finally, we'll be going to talking about the 52nd martyrdom anniversary of Major Shabbir Sharif Shaheed. The nation paid tribute to one of his bravest martyrs. The valiant soldiers embraced Shahadat and gave his life for the defense of his motherland in the 1971 war. And of course, the need to highlight this and to bring to the fore all those who have laid down their lives for Pakistan is very important for the Pakistanis, especially the young generation, to understand and learn from. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns Palestine and Israel, the conflict that has now entered its 61st day, and so many developments that are occurring in Gaza, in the West Bank, and on the diplomatic front as well. We've been joined by two people. The first will be online, Ambassador Dr. Haitham Bousaid. He is the IHRC CEO to the United Nations Geneva. Our second guest is in the studios, Bakir Younas. He's a journalist who belongs to the Arab world and a regular guest on our show as well. Thank you very much, Bakir, to have joined us. Let's begin with you, Bakir. The Israeli Prime Minister says at a press conference that Gaza will have to be demilitarized after the war, but at the same time Israel doesn't want to be demilitarized after the war anytime whatsoever. In fact, it wants to occupy as much of Gaza as possible. Will there be some leeway, some kind of measures taken for Israel to prevent Israel from doing that?
It seems that the countries who surround Israel, the countries who are supposed to oppose their occupation, are not doing their work according to the situation. There is a lot of pressure I feel from these countries to stop the Palestinians from, defending their land, from protecting their land, from asking for the right, which is it's an ultimate right that they have their land. It is their own land. Since 1948, this land have been occupied. There is nothing named Israel. We know this very well. We know this is all an occupation. We know this is an occupation forces. But the problem is these countries are not doing the real work of them. They are supposed to stop Israelis. They are supposed to ask Israelis even to go out from Palestine, to free all Palestine, not only Gaza. But unfortunately, we're seeing this. We're seeing that there is more kind of, you can say, like, what can support to the Israelis, because if you are not supporting the Palestinians, if you are not giving the Palestinians the right, it means ultimately you are supporting the Israelis. So I don't want to blame any country. I don't want to, accuse any country. But it seems that these countries are not doing their work. They are not able to, show their value. They are not able to go for the right work. Even this international community, the international law, it all has been failed now. We know this very well. Everybody now, we have no trust in these laws. We have no trust in these communities, because those people have actually, so far, couldn't stop this genocide attacks. They couldn't stop the killing of the children, of the women, demolishing the infrastructure of Gaza. They haven't even asked the Israelis to go abide the laws, which is the war laws. They have given them a green light. Do what you want in Gaza, which means now we have double standards in society, we have a community, we have double standard laws. These laws only applies on us, on the Palestinians, on the Arabs, on the Muslims, but it never applies on the Israelis and on the Jewish.
China's Wang Yi has had a telephone conversation with Anthony Blinken, the US Secretary of State. Both sides did exchange views on Israel-Palestine conflict and agreed to maintain communication. Do you feel that there is we know the proactive role that China is playing. We know the proactive role that Turkey, for example, is playing as well. We also know about the GCC and the Qatari-Saudi Coordination Council that also released a statement on Tuesday that called for deep concern about the humanitarian catastrophe and called for compliance with international law, intensify efforts towards the two-state solution. All of these are extremely good measures, but how can we implement those as far as into action that could be concrete and could help the people of Palestine?
That's the point. You see, these are statements, these are conversation calls, as you just said. They are in court, but they are nothing on the ground. What we see in the ground, there is a killing of the Palestinians. We don't even we are not calculating or counting the killing of the fighters who's actually fighting for their protection of the Palestinians. We are calculating the killing of the children and the women and the civilians in Gaza. These killings are being increased. They never stopped, and the Israelis are not even caring about that. And these statements are not. They don't care. They don't include the stop of the killing of the children. If you include it just verbally, it doesn't work. You have to implement. You can ask for an interest to Gaza. There should be open border between Gaza and the Arab countries. I don't want to say one country. All the Arab countries have to come together. All of them have to stop this genocide attacks from the Israelis. All of them have to enter Gaza and protect the Gazan people. They shouldn't leave, because we have seen there's a full support to the Israeli from the international, from the Europe countries, from the USA, from the international community. So this should be a similar help and support for the Gazan from the Arab countries and Muslim countries.
16,248 Palestinians have been killed mercilessly since the 7th of October. Now 61 days pass and the number of casualties keep on increasing. As we know, Israeli army tanks are moving towards the center of Khan Younas after a night of non-stop military shelling and clashes around Gaza. Also, the UN Special Rapporteur says massacre of civilians must be stopped. Another statement. As the hospitals in Gaza surge to cope with the increase in the number of Palestinians needing urgent care, shouldn't humanitarian aid be reaching the hospitals if nothing else?
This is a common sense. Humanitarian aid should reach, food should reach, medicines should reach, stopping the attack should start. There should be an active role. It's 61 days, civilian people under attack. With even those people have no shelter. They have no geographical shelter. They have no natural shelter. They have no any human-made shelters. They don't have any. See, we are seeing every day a killing of children. This is a genocide. This is a war crime.
Ethnic cleansing.
There should be a real stand against the Israeli forces, and which they name themselves as IDF, Israeli Defense Force, which means that they are not a force who attacks. But we see which attack they're
This
getting.
is not defense action that they're doing right
They
now.
are attacking children. We are saying, okay, you want Hamas, you want Al Jihad, you want these kind of groups. Find them. They are fighting you in the north while you're coming to the south. So their action shows that they are not looking for fighters. They want a genocidal operation, and they want Palestinians to leave Gaza and go outside Gaza, also leave West Bank, go outside West Bank. They want to clear Palestine from the Palestinians, and they want to, ensure they claim that this land is their holy land.
Bakir, the Israeli Defense Minister Gallant says the attack on Gaza South will surpass the North operation, despite the American pressure advising against it. Americans can't even put pressure on Israel to stop the blatant killings of people, of children in Gaza or in the surroundings, can they?
I don't think the Americans can stop. Of course, if they want, they will. But as we see, the Americans are not willing really to stop. Because if they will stop Israelis from killing the Palestinians and show that the Israelis couldn't achieve their target from demolishing Hamas, capturing their leaders, killing them, and create a new government in Gaza, I think this is something will disturb the American system in the region. Americans want a new system in Gaza. They are saying we don't want a Hamas government anymore. We want a new government they want to bring to Gaza. So I think this is something that.
So the Palestinians can't even decide who can come into power in their own land.
Because they are not accepting that this is our land. They are looking at us as we are, an Indians on our land.
When they have been the aliens, they are the ones who are the occupiers.
They are the occupiers. They are the religion occupiers. Yesterday we have seen that some of the leaders say that it's not a religion fight, but actually it is a religion fight. The conflict is what? It's on Al-Aqsa Mosque. Let the Israelis shift the people of Gaza to Al-Aqsa, to Jerusalem. Will this end the fight? Will they accept? Okay, give us Jerusalem and take Palestine. Will they accept? They won't, because according to them, there's the Sulaiman temple under the Al-Aqsa Mosque, so they want this place. So it is a holy fight for them. It is a holy fight for us. It's a religious fight, nothing more. So that's why it's taking this type of shape. They want a cleansing. They want to demolish.
They want to do whatever they want, basically, in Gaza post the conflict, whenever the conflict ends. You talk about the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Israeli police have approved a protest on the Al-Aqsa Mosque tomorrow. That's going to happen tomorrow, of the far-right Israeli activists. The Palestinian Authorities Ministry of Foreign Affairs is also calling for international pressure to halt this march. We come back to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, don't we? And what happens once they protest on the Al-Aqsa Mosque? What do they want to do with the Al-Aqsa Mosque?
They want to claim, they want to make sure that the Al-Aqsa Mosque is not a real place. This place is actually a Jewish-related place, an Israeli place, according to their Torah. Then there is a Sulaiman temple, and so let's destroy Al-Aqsa, finish it all, make their temple, and take it back. That is their dream. That is their, target. The point is, we are supposed to stand together as Muslims, because we know this is a holy place for us. This is Qibla Awal. That is the concept of Muslims. So if a Muslims people stand, nation stands with the Palestinians in this concept, I think things will change. But since it's not happening, so we are in this position.
The Russian president is going to visit the UAE and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Do you think that will yield some kind of positive development as far as Palestine is concerned? Because I see that Russia has been extremely proactive as far as this conflict is concerned.
True. I think the Russians are more rational in the sense that they are looking for a change in the equation. They are looking for holding this fight between Israel and Palestine. They are looking into not accepting the American-Israeli strategy in the region. They want a new equation. I hope this will be in our favor.
All right, let's hope that as well. I'd also like to understand this concept of so-called safe zones. Israel is more or less squeezing 1.8 million Palestinians into what they call the safe zone called Al-Mawasi. This is a section of the southern town of Al-Mawasi, the only area that is designated as a so-called safe zone. What happens once the conflict ends? Will they restrict them to the safe zone? What will happen to all these Palestinians that are cramped together?
See, the Israeli want to show us that we are hopeless. We have nothing to do. They are controlling us. They are collecting us in different ways. They are trying to show that they can influence the Palestinians within their own place. I don't think this will happen because the fighters are still very strong in the north of Palestine. They are very strong in Khan Younas as well in the south. So I think this situation they're not going to success in this way. Yes, there's something we have to know, that they are killers. they're thieves and occupiers, killer thieves. They can do what they want. According to them, there is no laws or rules control them. But we have to do our best effort to not accept their what you can say pressure, and to create a new way to round around and what you can say, like, fail their targets.
I'd like to quote something that CNN said, and that is quite alarming. CNN quotes US officials familiar with the Palestine-Israel conflict, saying that after the Hamas attack on the 7th of October, Israel's initial planned response was to level, quote unquote, all of the Gaza Strip. Israel's original plan was to involve a large-scale land, air and sea operation involving hundreds and thousands of Israeli troops, and a desire to level the entire Gaza Strip. Do you feel they will ever achieve that?
See, they have the force. We are human. What force the Palestinians have shows that it's really weak according to the force they have. The quantity of weapons, the quantity of what you call like aircrafts. We don't have aircrafts. We don't have tanks, of course. So yes, they might be able to do this. But in our equation, we have one thing which is, I think, more stronger, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have his help and his hand with the Palestinians. Israeli
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says there will be a demilitarized Gaza after the conflict ends. And his idea of demilitarizing Gaza is to put the Israeli army in that area. Will countries, even close allies like the US, agree with them on this?
Of course they will agree. The US will agree, but the problem is they can't stay in Gaza now. How they will stay in Gaza after that? So I don't think this is going to happen. Yes, they have, of course, to say this to make their people happy, to make his position in the government strong, because there's a lot of people asking him to resign now. He's saying these things. He wants to show that he's strong enough to do this, but I don't think he'll be able to do it.
The Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's role has been also quite important. He's been very staunch as far as his support for the Palestinians is concerned. So is Nicaragua's foreign minister, who's arrived in the West Bank, and Jeremy Corbyn, who has written to David Cameron, who is going to the US to talk about Israel, Palestine, and a way forwards, some way to end this current conflict, or the warlike situation, or the brutalities, the killings of the innocent children, women and men. How optimistic or cautiously optimistic are you of the diplomatic efforts that are being made by those who genuinely are with the Palestinians?
See, this diplomatic effort is really essential. It's very important. This really can change the situation inside Palestine. It can create also a huge pressure on the Israelis, because you see, at the end, the Israelis are always taking the funds, the support from these countries. So if these countries stand with the Palestinians, there will be a big change in the Israeli decision makers. But the point is, what we understand, that this government and these occupiers, they don't understand any diplomacy. They understand, the force, the killing language, the force language. So I think, yes, this may create a pressure, but this won't end the current situation. I think Palestinians should be more supported in a different way, so the Israelis really stop from killing the Palestinians.
The WHO's representative in Gaza, Mr. Peppercorn, says that the situation in the enclave is close to being the darkest in human history. Well, everybody knows what is exactly happening in Gaza. When people know the humanitarian situation, when people know the plight of the people, when people know the killing of the innocent people, shouldn't there be more action? I mean, I would insist on the word action than rather statements. And what is preventing any action from actually happening, any concrete action from actually happening?
I think the main thing preventing from these organizations to take an action, number one, there's a lot of Israelis among them, there's a lot of Jewish among them. Number two, most of them also are believers of the Holy Land for the Israelis inside Palestine. So that's why they're not taking real actions.
Okay.
And the other thing, they don't want this kind of Islamic groups to grow up again in the Middle East. So you don't want any kind of jihadi concept, let me call it, to grow up in the Middle East, especially in Palestine, because if this place goes with the Muslims, a lot of things will change in the Middle East.
The HRW also has shown pictures that evidences the destruction of agricultural land in Gaza by Israeli forces. So not only are they destroying the people, their houses, the land that they occupy, they are also destroying all agricultural produce, so that the people in Gaza and Palestine continue to live in dire straits even when the conflict ends.
It's very true. They want to destroy as much as they can in order to destroy the will of getting free, the will of the fighters, the will of the Gazan people, the will of the Palestinians in taking back their country. I think they have destroyed a lot of things, but they will never destroy the will.
All right, thank you very much, Bakir Younas, to have joined us in the studios. Bakir Younas, ladies and gentlemen, a renowned journalist from the Arab world, joining us and talking to us about the Israel-Palestine conflict that has entered its 61st day, and the number of casualties, of course, the number of people who have been killed has exceeded 16,000, more than 6,000 children. Can you believe that in this day and age, when we decry human rights in all forms and manifestations, we are seeing a blatant example of that happening in front of us in Palestine. May Allah be with us and may He guide us in the right direction. Let's come to our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, that concerns climate change, COP28, and all that is happening in the UAE as well as in Pakistan. When it comes to Pakistan, caretaker Prime Minister Umar has urged religious leaders to consistently address the issue of climate change in their teachings. He was talking to a delegation of Dawoodi Bohra community headed by Dr. Sayyidina Mufdal Saifuddin in Islamabad today. And he also, our caretaker Prime Minister, talked about the harmful impact of climate change, the entire world in facing the threat of extinction. Dr. Khalid Waleed, energy economist with the SDPI, joins us online. Dr. Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. I see that you are at the venue of COP28. What's the latest updates as far as that is concerned? What are the developments as far as reduction in fossil fuel production is concerned?
For having me. I hope I am audible because I'm at the venue. I am sitting just outside the Pakistan's pavilion. Lots of things are happening at the COP, lots of good things, lots of controversies. In terms of energy transition, important pledges have been made in terms of climate financing, in terms of loss and damage fund. Lots and lots of financing have been collected, have been pledged. About today, it's about 50 billion USDs that have been pledged. This is a sign in a right direction. In terms of energy transition, for Pakistan, there are good news that many of the countries have pledged for the just energy transition, and Pakistan need that kind of just energy transition so that we can phase out or phase down our fossil fuel assets. Just to give you some numbers, 60% of the Pakistan's power generation comes from the fossil fuels. So that number, that initiative and that pledges are very good things for Pakistan. Second, very good and effective kind of pledge that was made here at the COP was the development in terms of carbon markets as well. So Pakistan use that carbon market for fossil fuels out as well. Third thing is there has been a methane pledge to reduce the methane emissions. Just to clarify, Pakistan comes in the top 10 countries in terms of methane emission. So that methane pledge is very important for Pakistan. So we need to now strengthen our policy framework regarding methane pledges. We need to strengthen our agriculture sector and emissions, and we need to make it more energy efficient. Fourth thing was in this COP, in terms of energy and energy transition, was this cooling pledge, which means that now we need to reduce the cooling load in terms of summer and in terms of rising temperature. Another, just to give you an example or just to give you some statistics, Pakistan's peak demand in summer is way more than in winter, which means that Pakistan's electricity load is mostly the cooling load. So this pledge is very important in terms of energy efficiency and reducing the cooling load. We can have this, we can see in the future more and more efficient devices coming into energy fold, so that we can reduce the amount of power that cooling devices uses. So that would be a good thing for Pakistan as well. Lastly, there was pledges to triple the renewable energy and double the energy efficiency. That was very good thing. Another thing on the sidelines was USA joined this past PPCA alliance, which is past par the coal alliance, which is a very good thing for Pakistan and other developing countries as well, because more and more nations have joined these alliances to retire coal power plants. So,
all right. All right, Dr. Khalid, stay online with us. We've also been joined by a guest in the studios. He's none other than Umar Farooq, a policy analyst. Umar, thank you very much to have joined us. There's a draft text for a COP28 final deal that includes 3 options for dealing with fossil fuels. The first, orderly and just phase out in UN parlance the word just, and then the second calls for accelerating efforts towards phasing out unabated fossil fuels, and the third, of course, is more on working towards it in the right direction. Do you feel that even if such a deal is accepted, signed by, it will actually translate into some kind of positive action from the major fossil fuel users or emitters?
So I believe that it is possible, especially when it comes to things like energy production. Phasing out fossil fuels to produce electricity is very much possible, given that if the effort's there. It will be a bit more tricky to completely phase them out because transport requires fossil fuels, petrol and diesel and gas. However, it will have a considerable impact given that if it is pursued properly.
All right. There's also talk of a language calling for the scaling up of carbon capture technology, which might have pushback from some countries worried about such nascent technology, to justify the continued use of fossil fuels. Do you feel that could be implemented as well?
That could be implemented, especially by rich polluters, because carbon capture technologies are relatively expensive. So it will be a good idea for countries like Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, small countries with a relatively high carbon footprint, that they can use these technologies, and they actually are in dire need of using such technologies as well, because the Gulf, like Pakistan, is at the forefront when it comes to the challenges of climate change. So I believe the GCC will be a prime audience for such cleaning methods.
All right. Do you feel that other countries of the region, including China, could also play an important role? We have the Belt and Road Initiative that China has with, and of course the CPEC is a huge part of it, but the BRI is not just about Pakistan, China, it's also about China and so many other countries. Could the green technology be applied in all the projects under the BRI? That would be a huge game changer.
That would be a huge game changer, and there's a very high chance that this would succeed if it's applied for the BRI. A lot of this green technology being used is being manufactured in China. For instance, solar panels, other technologies, they're all being built in China, batteries, electric vehicles. So the Chinese can have a leading role when it comes to moving away from fossil fuels and move towards greener technologies.
All right, let's come back to our guest who is waiting for us impatiently at the UAE at the COP28. He's none other than Dr. Khalid Waleed. We were talking to him a few moments back. Dr. Khalid, 63 countries have vowed to curb cooling emissions at COP28. Any possibility of this becoming an actual reality?
Well, I would say in terms of just energy transition, it is very imperative, it is very vital. To achieve this orderly and step-by-step energy transition towards the renewable energy, one thing I would like to tell you is that China and India, they did not sign that pledge so far, the tripling the renewable energy. But I would say that China has come up with their version of green investment finance partnership. This is their version of just energy transition partnership by the G7 countries. So I would say there is financing available, and multiple countries and multiple donors, they are financing this green revolution, or I would say renewable energy revolution. So Pakistan can take benefit out of it, but we need to be careful in this just energy transition, because we need to cater for the job market as well, because many of the workers, they are associated with fossil fuels. We need to capacity build, and we need to introduce green technologies as well. You mentioned that there is a focus on carbon capture as well. So carbon capture in terms of economies, just like Middle Eastern economies and other advanced economies, they can afford that sort of technology. But that sort of technology should be transferred to other countries and developing countries as well. So in that terms, there should be capacity building for the workers, so that they can transition from fossil fuel sector to renewable energy sector, they need capacity building, and we need technology transfer as well, so that we can be more, we can invest in more green technologies, and we can indigenize this process. In that way, we can have just an inclusive transition in terms of renewable energy and in terms of energy overall. So we need to have three-pronged strategy, that is to capacity build our workers. We need to have technology transfers, and second, we need to make sure that our job market is not affected in this process of just energy transition.
You talk of inclusive transitions, Dr. Khalid. I'd like to understand how can all this be possible without proper climate financing. There's a lot of pledges. There are a lot of pledges being made by the UAE as well, by other countries as well. But then, again, the pledges remain pledges until the money actually comes in the hands or to the governments that need it. For example, Pakistan, we've seen how the number of pledges that were made at COP27, but those pledges were actually never materialized. We also have the Paris climate agreement that is in place, under which a huge sum of money needed to be distributed to all the countries who were in need. That also never happened. And is there any hope for the actualization of all the pledges?
Well, as far as the calamities and adversities of climate change are concerned, they are increasing, and they are increasing rapidly. So all the countries, all the delegates who are present here, they have this awareness that the calamities and adversities are increasing, and if these calamities of climate change are increasing, they are not they will not remain within the countries where these are happening. They will affect all the landscape of the world, including economic landscape, political landscape, and geopolitical landscape as well. So there is awareness among all the stakeholders, among all the delegations, that we need to act. We need to act, unite, and deliver. This is the slogan of this COP, that we need to act. We need to act fast. We need to unite, and we need to deliver as well. So this is where the implementation part comes in. Just to give you an example, in last year's COP, Pakistan floated the idea of loss and damage fund, and in terms of G77 leadership and China, Pakistan floated this idea of loss and damage fund. In this COP28, this loss and damage fund has been actualized and has been operationalized. Billions of dollars have been floated into this account of loss and damage fund. Now we need to take it further so that we can give this money and transfer this money to the most affected in terms of targeted and inclusive sort of way, so that the money can get towards those who are actually affected by climate change.
All right, Dr. Khalid, remain online with us. We have to revert to our studio and the guest in the studio, Umar, Farooq, policy analyst. We've just heard about the loss and damage fund and how now it has been operationalized. What kind of mechanisms need to be put into place under the ambit of COP28 in order to properly distribute the money under the loss and damage fund to the countries that have been affected the most, including Pakistan?
So the most unbiased organization that is internationally considered that can deal with this is the UN. However, with the UN, a lot of objections have been raised regarding the red tape that is there. There have been alternative suggestions. For instance, international financial institutions should take over the IMF, the World Bank. However, the problem with the financial institutions is that their mechanism of distribution is more business-like and less aid-like.
Okay.
The funds that are here, they need to be distributed on a basis which is similar to humanitarian basis. They need to be dispersed rapidly, and they need to be dispersed without international political considerations in mind. So the best way forward would be if the UN were to take it up, and to take it up with the utmost speed, because the world cannot wait for the red tape. The world needs the money now. In fact, $400 billion are being lost to economic productivity annually, and in Pakistan, the UN has estimated that by 2050, we will lose 1/5 of our GDP to climate change. We will be a country of 400 million people that is already a low-income country, which will lose 1/5 of its GDP. These implications will reverberate across the world. If South Asia, if countries in Africa who are most affected by climate change, if they are not helped. This is not just a moral imperative. This is an economic imperative, a security imperative, a political imperative, which should be taken very seriously in world capitals.
All right, but taking things seriously is extremely important. At the same time, there needs to be an increased, development within the community itself. People need to be aware of what climate change is and what its impact can be on their communities, on their nations, on their societies. How important is, I'd like to revert to what our caretaker Prime Minister Anwar Kakar Sahab said. He met the religious leaders of the Dawoodi Bohra community, but the fact remains that he pointed out that the responsibility of the religious community to disseminate information regarding climate change was extremely important. We as Pakistanis, as Muslims, listen a lot to our leaders, our religious leaders, during sermons, during other such events. How important is the role of the religious community as well and the local leaders to disseminate the right information so that we can be not only more climate friendly but also more climate aware?
That's a very important point, because a lot of the things that are happening which are damaging the environment, people are not aware of exactly what the implications can be. For instance, Pakistan has a massive deforestation problem. People believe that this is business as usual. They've been doing it for a long time. However, it is leading to erosion. It is leading to worsening of floods. So the big picture can only be conveyed to the public by people who have societal influence, by political leaders, religious leaders, people who have social followings. They need to spread the message that we need to follow a lifestyle which is friendly for the climate. For instance, in Pakistan, as Dr. Khalid mentioned, that we don't have a lot of our energy usage is for cooling. Housing in Pakistan practically does not have insulation. We will build very nice houses in the nicest places, but they will not be insulated. Our air conditioning bills, our other expenses, they can go down. These reforms that we need at an individual level, at a societal level, these are not just morally good things, they make economic sense as well. So a little investment, for instance, in insulation, in housing. For instance, if there's a bit of enforcement to not build in floodplains, which are going to be flooded and which might be flooded every year. So we were spared the wrath of the floods in 2023 compared to 2022. However, we don't know if this will happen in 2024 again. So a lot of people, tens of millions of people, in fact, live in flood-prone areas.
So they need to understand what are the measures that they need to be take individually or on a community level in order to prevent the dire effects of climate change whenever it could happen in the future as well. We've seen what happened last year. For our last question to you, Dr. Khalid Waleed, the Buildings Breakthrough Global Initiative has also been launched. How optimistic are you of that?
To add to the last question, today was the day of multi-level action. I would say that energy transition and other sort of climate-centric approaches, they cannot be completed without involving the community into it and involving community. One of the thing is that we need to have local governments going on. In future there would be more focus on city level governments, on local government system, and the community governance, if we want to take it to the multi-level approach. So Pakistan needs to invest on the local governments, invest in the cities, so that there is more climate smart urbanization and climate smart urban population and rural communities, so that we can not only fight this climate drive and we are more climate resilient. Second thing is that my colleague has mentioned that we need to have effective and targeted sort of financing, external financing coming into Pakistan, but we need to devise some sort of internal mechanism as well, and that internal mechanism should be based on community-centric approach, based on local government, so that we can have this just sort of climate financing coming into, and targeted climate financing going into the folds of people, who are affected by the climate change. Coming back to your question is that what we can do for better implementation, we can have this six level of implementation framework. First starts with the introspection. We need to introspect what are the needs, which areas are most affected by the climate change, and which are more prone to these climate change effects. Second is the integration. We need to integrate rural communities, urban communities. We need to integrate private sector into it. Third is that we need to incentivize these drives. Fourth is the inclusiveness. We need to include gender. We need to include indigenous people, indigenous communities. Fifth is the indigenization. Indigenization is that we need to have these production level facilities producing these climate smart technologies and renewable energy equipments in Pakistan by the local community, so that this indigenization and localization process can make ourselves economically resilient. And lastly, it comes the implementation part, where the political will is very important. We need to get these climate smart and climate resilient initiatives embedded into our political discourse, so that there is more buy-in from the politicians, policymakers, and bureaucracy. So this is a step-by-step and multi-level process, and it should be community-centric and people-centric.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khalid Waleed, Energy Economist with the SDPI, joining us from the UAE, from the venue of the COP28. Final question to you as well, Umar. Political will is something that Khalid Saab mentioned, and I think it's extremely important. We can do whatever, we can make as many statements as possible, but until and unless that political will to implement those measures is not there, nothing will happen. Is the political will there at COP28? I'd like a short answer.
The political will is improving, but it's not there where it needs to be. But it is getting there.
Okay, so we are on the process of getting on the right path.
We are on the right path, but we still have a long way to go.
We still have a long way to go. Let's hope that long way becomes shorter, and that the political will becomes more proactive, let's put it that way, so that before the next calamity strikes any part of the world, including Pakistan, the world is ready to help the country in need. Thank you very much, Umar Farooq, policy analyst, to have joined us as well. Let's come to our last three stories. The first concerns the KSE 100 index that has gained 1.5% and closed near 64,000. It did reach 64,000, but it closed near 64,000, and that was a record for Pakistan as far as its economic indicators are concerned. They're only going from better to better. And when it comes to the KSE index or the Pakistan Stock Exchange, whenever you see the index rising, it means that there is a huge investor confidence coming in from the different sectors in Pakistan that shows that people are quite optimistic as far as Pakistan's economic outlook is concerned. The KSE 100 index, as I told you, gained 1.5%, and it was up by 961 points, closed at 63,917 points. And let's hope that this continues as a good trend, because we've never seen these numbers beforehand. Let's hope these numbers continue to remain at their place or even become better. Next is the 31st anniversary of the demolition of the historic Babri Mosque. We all know that this was one of the incidents that started the whole wave of Islamophobia across the world, and also led to Narendra Modi's government a few years back, which of course he had a second time, and now there's elections again in India. It is a sad reminder of what happened on this very day in the 1990s. When we look at the past and look how a country that used to be at one time pluralistic is no longer one that used to could call itself a democracy, can no longer call itself a democracy because of these values that have now entered into the community, forced or perpetrated by the BJP-led government. We need to remind ourselves of what we need to do in order to make the world a better place, a safer place to live in, especially for all the communities, whether they be Muslims or Christians or any other faith. Finally, today is Major Shabir Sharif's 52nd martyrdom anniversary. He embraced martyrdom on the 6th of December 1971 after being hit by a tank shell. A smartly turned out contingent of the Pakistan Army presented a guard of honor on his tomb today as well. Various people from different walks of life also were present there. He was talking about Major Sharif, he was a valiant warrior, displayed unparalleled courage while defending the motherland, and was awarded the Nishan-e Haider, the highest gallantry award for his supreme sacrifices that led to his shahadat in the 1971 war. He was ordered to capture the high ground near the Suleiman Ki headworks. The position was defended by Indian infantry and supported by a squadron of tanks. He captured the area, killed 43 Indian soldiers and destroyed 4 tanks and embraced shahadat in this whole endeavor. We look forward and we look up to such people who have been there instrumental for Pakistan, for its defense, and we need to laud their services whenever and wherever we can, because these are the people who fight for our country. These are the people who are there whenever we need them. With that, we come to an end of today's news. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with news story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay tuned. Allah Hafiz.